The year was 1977. California trembled. The Golden State, known for its sunshine and dreams, was overshadowed by a dark and sinister presence. The streets that once bustled with life now echoed with fear and uncertainty. A predator stalked their streets. This was no ordinary criminal, he was a phantom in the night. A figure that haunted the dreams of many. Richard Chase, a name whispered with fear and disgust. His very mention sent shivers down the spines of those who knew of his deeds. He became the embodiment of terror. His crimes, unthinkable. The brutality and sheer madness of his actions left an indelible mark on the community. His victims? Innocent souls taken too soon. Families were torn apart, and the community was left to grapple with the horror of his actions. The Vampire of Sacramento, they called him. A moniker that captured the essence of his gruesome acts. He craved blood, driven by delusions. His mind was a labyrinth of twisted thoughts and dark fantasies. Chase's reign of terror left an indelible scar on California's history. The fear he instilled was palpable, and the memories of his crimes lingered long after his capture. A chilling reminder that monsters do exist. They walk among us, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the moment to strike. The hunt for Chase consumed law enforcement. Detectives and officers worked tirelessly, piecing together clues and following leads, desperate to end the nightmare. Every passing day brought new horrors. The community lived in a state of constant dread, wondering who would be next. The pressure mounted to stop this nightmare. The weight of the investigation bore heavily on the shoulders of those tasked with bringing Chase to justice. His crimes were not just murder, they were acts of depravity, of pure evil. Each scene was a testament to his twisted psyche. They were acts of depravity, of pure evil, the kind of evil that leaves a permanent scar on the collective memory of a community. Chase's story is not for the faint of heart. It is a grim reminder of the darkness that can reside within the human soul. It is a descent into the darkest corners of the human psyche, a journey that reveals the terrifying potential for evil that lies within us all. Richard Trenton Chase entered the world on May 23, 1950. He seemed like any other child in Sacramento, but beneath the surface, darkness brewed. His childhood, far from idyllic. It was marred by turmoil and abuse. His parents' relationship volatile and fraught with conflict. Young Richard, caught in the crossfire, he witnessed things no child should. His home environment far from nurturing. It was a breeding ground for instability. Some speculate this toxic atmosphere planted the seeds of his later psychosis. Chase's behavior raised red flags early on. He displayed cruelty towards animals, a classic warning sign. Bedwetting persisted, even into his adolescence. His troubled childhood offered a glimpse into the darkness that would consume him. Adolescence brought no respite for Richard. His mental state deteriorated further. He grappled with increasingly disturbing thoughts. His behavior became more erratic and worrisome. Paranoid delusions took root in his mind. He believed he was the target of conspiracies. The world in his eyes was a menacing and hostile place. Chase's obsession with blood intensified. He developed a morbid fascination with its power. He saw it as the key to his survival. His delusions whispered to him. They told him he needed blood to live. This belief fueled his descent into madness. His actions became more bizarre, more unhinged. He was spiraling out of control, and no one seemed to notice. Chase's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He experimented with drugs, further blurring his grip on reality. His delusions intensified. He believed his body was changing. His heart, he claimed, would sometimes stop beating. He thought his blood was turning to powder. He was convinced only fresh blood could replenish him. He sought medical help but was dismissed as a hypochondriac. His pleas for help fell on deaf ears. Frustrated and desperate, he turned to self-medication. He began capturing and killing animals. He would drink their blood, convinced it would cure him. This gruesome practice marked a chilling escalation in his delusions. The line between fantasy and reality was fading fast. He was becoming the monster he feared. The year 1977 arrived. Richard Chase, now 27, crossed a horrifying threshold. He graduated from animal cruelty to human prey. His first victim, Ambrose Griffin, shot dead on his own doorstep. A senseless, brutal act that sent shockwaves through Sacramento, but this was just the beginning of Chase's reign of terror. Days later, he attacked Teresa Wallen. Pregnant and home alone, she became his next victim. He shot her in cold blood, then mutilated her body. He drank her blood and even ate some of her organs. His depravity knew no bounds. He had transformed into the monster the press would dub the Vampire of Sacramento. Panic gripped Sacramento. The news of Chase's gruesome crimes spread like wildfire. Fear permeated the air. Residents were afraid to leave their homes. Parents kept their children close. The city was a tinderbox of anxiety and dread. Law enforcement worked tirelessly to catch the monster in their midst. The pressure was immense. Every passing day brought the risk of another horrific crime. They knew they were dealing with a deranged individual, someone capable of unimaginable cruelty. The hunt for Richard Chase became their top priority. They were determined to stop him before he could claim another victim. January 1978. It was a cold, bleak winter and the city was gripped with fear. The streets were eerily quiet, as if the very air held its breath, waiting for the next atrocity. Chase committed his final act of barbarity. His reign of terror had reached its horrifying climax, leaving a trail of blood and despair in its wake. He entered the home of Evelyn Mireth, a place that should have been a sanctuary. But on that fateful night it became a house of horrors. He murdered her, along with her friend, Danny Meredith. He didn't stop there. The brutality of his actions knew no bounds. He murdered Evelyn's 6-year-old son, Jason, in an act so heinous it defies comprehension, and her 22-month-old nephew, David. The innocence of youth was shattered in an instant. He took David's body with him, a chilling reminder of his depravity. The darkness of his soul was laid bare for all to see. This time there was a witness, someone who saw the monster in action and lived to tell the tale. David's friend saw Chase leaving the house. Her courage in coming forward would prove to be pivotal. Her description led police straight to him. The net was closing in, and justice was on the horizon. They apprehended Chase at his apartment. The nightmare was finally over, or so it seemed. Inside they found a scene straight out of a nightmare. The true extent of his madness was revealed in the gruesome details: bloodstains, body parts, and a horrific collection of trophies from his victims. Each item told a story of unimaginable horror. Chase confessed to his crimes. He showed no remorse, his eyes devoid of any humanity. His only concern was that the police were stealing his blood. In his twisted mind, even in the face of his own evil, he remained the victim. Chase's trial began in 1979. The nation watched in horror as the details of his crimes unfolded. His defense? Insanity. They argued he was incapable of understanding the gravity of his actions. The prosecution painted a different picture. They presented him as a calculating killer, fully aware of his actions. The jury ultimately found Chase guilty on 6 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to death. His trial left a lasting impact on everyone involved. The jurors, the lawyers, the families of the victims, all forever marked by the horrors they had encountered. Richard Chase never saw his death sentence carried out. Despite the heinous nature of his crimes, the end of his life came not at the hands of the state, but by his own doing. The man who had instilled fear in the hearts of Sacramento residents met a quiet, solitary end. On December 26, 1980, he was found dead in his cell. The discovery was a grim post-Christmas revelation, a stark contrast to the festive season. The prison guards, who had become accustomed to his presence, were met with an eerie silence that morning. He had overdosed on antidepressants he had been hoarding. The very medications meant to stabilize his mind became the tools of his demise. It was a tragic irony that the pills intended to help him cope with his mental illness were the same ones that ended his life. Some saw it as a cowardly escape from justice. They believed he had taken the easy way out, avoiding the full weight of the punishment he deserved. For them, his death was a final act of defiance against the system that sought to hold him accountable. Others, a final act of self-destruction. To them, it was a fitting end for a man whose life had been marked by violence and chaos. His suicide was seen as the ultimate expression of his inner turmoil and self-loathing. Chase's reign of terror may have ended, but his legacy lived on. The fear he instilled in the community left a lasting scar, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk within the human soul. His crimes were not easily forgotten, and neither was the man behind them. He became a chilling example of the darkest depths of human depravity. His actions were studied by criminologists and psychologists alike, seeking to understand what drove him to such monstrous behavior. His name became synonymous with evil, a cautionary tale of what can happen when mental illness goes unchecked. His case sparked debates about mental health, animal cruelty and the justice system. People questioned how someone so disturbed could slip through the cracks, and what could be done to prevent such tragedies in the future. His story became a catalyst for change, prompting discussions and reforms in various sectors. The Vampire of Sacramento serves as a grim reminder of the fragility of life and the monsters that lurk in the shadows. His tale is a haunting one, a stark illustration of how quickly normalcy can be shattered by the actions of a single individual. It is a story that continues to resonate, a dark chapter in the annals of crime. His name remains synonymous with terror, forever etched in the annals of American crime. Richard Chase's legacy is a somber one, a testament to the horrors that can arise from untreated mental illness and unchecked violence. His story is a chilling reminder of the potential for darkness within us all.